Anyway, so thank you so much, Patrick, for coming on to the Blue Guardian podcast. So many people don't know this. You're one of our biggest guests. You're a pretty impressive dude, and you're kind of in a really special area. So I really appreciate you coming on, and I hope you can share that with us and share that with the viewers. So kind of give an intro to yourself and tell us who you are.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, Emmanuel, and excited about what you're building with Blue Guardian. So I'm Patrick Spence. I was born in Kitchener, Ontario, Canada, and really, grew up in southwestern Ontario and had the amazing opportunity after graduating from Western, the Ivey Business School HBA program, to join a company nobody knew about at that point, and everybody thought I was crazy to join, called Research in Motion, RIM. And this was back in 1998. So before, mobile phones took off, really before a lot of the dot-com boom and everything that we've seen over the last 23 years. And so I spent my first 14 years actually helping RIM slash BlackBerry become a global powerhouse in smartphones, which we now obviously has implications for our attention, our mental health, all of the things that we see today in dealing, I think, both for ourselves and as well for our kids, right? And everything that appears today. So I had an amazing opportunity there to do a variety of different things, live in Australia, started our Asia Pacific region, led our North American business, and then also moved over to London to lead our Europe, Middle East, and Africa business, and then eventually ran global sales and marketing. After 14 years there, an amazing run, I left to put everything that I had learned at RIM slash BlackBerry to work at a startup at that point, Sonos, which is really a company that's trying to be the world's leading sound experience company. We can talk about that more. Really invented the smart speaker, and that's where I've been for 9 years. And we have an incredible amount of momentum right now at Sonos. This whole, the whole world of audio is just taking off. So I like to say right now we're in the golden age of audio with all of the growth we're seeing in streaming, in podcasts, in social audio now as well. So people are listening to more than ever before. And we're right at the cusp of bringing all of that great content together with amazing out loud listening. And we've been really focused on the home up until this point, and then we've recently made some moves to go beyond the home, both with our Roam portable speaker, and then as well with a partnership with Audi to take the Sonos experience into cars. And so we're very excited about what the future holds. And really, I'd say, Emmanuel, fundamentally, every day I'm working towards building Sonos into a company that is adaptable, admired, and will be something that's enduring. And so that is what I'm focused on every single day. We have 1,500 amazing people, best team in the world, that has done a tremendous job through the pandemic as well and navigated all of that. And I feel very fortunate to lead the best team in the world and on a mission that is very exciting for us. And yeah, I couldn't be happier. So
That's perfect. That's perfect. So, BlackBerry, like this is a little bit before my time. I mean, I actually did have a BlackBerry. So, like it was like right on the edge of kind of like the transition from BlackBerry to iPhone. And, I'm mainly an iPhone user, but BlackBerry was really like the beginning of like the digital age, right? And
that's
like
right.
what everybody was using. So how was it kind of like joining a company like RIM, like slash BlackBerry, where essentially, you started with something that not many people had faith in, and like it's being used by like everybody in the world. You have I like from the president of the United States,
Yes.
like your like
Oprah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Oprah, everybody's using a BlackBerry, right?
Yeah.
So how was that kind of like building up?
Well, amazing, especially when, I think, we start and people are doubting, that we could do it, doubting that we could do it from Canada, as well, and all of those things. And so I think part of that fueled us in terms of doing something on a global scale, bringing kind of like, we saw really multiple worlds, coming together, which was computing and telecommunications and tying that into the internet fundamentally. And so like marrying all three, and it was just super exciting and super fast paced. I mean, in that world, you have to be kind of earning your place every single day. You have to be navigating an ecosystem that's developing, where there's new companies popping up, there's big existing players that are out there. We at a point, everybody always, told us we were going to get destroyed by larger, better funded companies, but we didn't, really listen to that. And we sometimes partnered with those companies, even though they might be competing with us in one way. But we found ways to kind of leverage them as partners in another. And even at one point, I think it was 2 or 3 years in, Microsoft and Qualcomm formed a venture called Wireless Knowledge to basically, destroy BlackBerry. And so there's times like that where you're like, okay, it's on in terms of what was happening at that point. But I think that, some of the really important things are staying focused on what it is that you're trying to do and for which customer segment and how that's going, and staying really close to that. One of the things that I think we did really well early on was stay very connected to those enterprise customers that we were serving. That was where we started, and fundamentally where our strength came from. And so we did a really good job of catering to their needs, being best in class in terms of doing that. And then when it came to consumers, working very closely to understand what consumers wanted and needed, and things like BlackBerry Messenger, which became huge, right, as a way for people to communicate, and trying to understand that and be on the forefront of that. So it was very exciting. It was a lot of work. The interesting thing with BlackBerry is, we were the #1 users of it, right? And so we actually took email, and our initial pitch had been like, save yourself an hour a day from sitting in front of your computer and having to do email, right? So if you can imagine a time, I mean, it seems crazy now, where people would actually have to go to their desk, right? And actually spend time reading and responding to email. We took that and said, you can save on typical, we did a bunch of surveys, that kind of stuff. Typically people could save that hour and do other things with it when they had a BlackBerry, because they could do it when they had some downtime here and there. And so save yourself an hour a day. But the unintended consequence was people were doing email all the time, right? Because now they had it in their pocket. And so, it also, since we were the primary users, we were working like very much on a 24/7 basis. And, and that was some of the industries that first picked it up. Lawyers, investment bankers, many in tech, right, also picked up on that, and, saw the ability really to be more always on and connected and move faster. So I think we both,
Let's kind of
yeah,
touch on that, because that's kind
yeah,
of a pretty critical thing. I mean,
yeah,
like, because you have a situation where, as technology kind of evolves, the more opportunity you can to be kind of always locked in, right? And we're seeing this mainly with kids as well. Even at school, like you're in front of a classroom, but you're still like connected to your phone at all times. You hear the ping, you're gonna sneak
yes,
under the desk and check it out.
yep,
So kind
yep.
of how is, like, what was the thought process, right? Because obviously it's a completely different world now. There's certain things you couldn't really predict, but like, what was the thought process then? Like, was this viewed as a positive thing? Was this viewed as a negative thing? Like, how was that kind of seen in the industry?
Very, at the time, very positive. And I think this is, like what we see with social media as well, and all of those things, where it's like, wow, this is great, I'm connected to my friends and family, isn't this wonderful? As I can remember, as we started to roll out the products, we started to use them ourselves. We were in meetings, and then everybody would be using their BlackBerry to be responding to an email, or sending another email, or those kind of things. And it felt like, it felt like that was being even more productive, right? And you would be more productive than another, competitor, right? Because you're, not only are you in a meeting, you're responding at the same time to like other things that are happening, and multitasking, right? And you're never wasting a second as we go through it. Now in hindsight, we know you don't necessarily, if you're doing that, you're not able to put your full concentration into the moment in that meeting, and necessarily bringing kind of like your best thinking into that moment, and you're distracted, and and the presenters or people that are leading it can feel disrespected. And there's a whole variety of different behaviors that have come out of that. That at that time, Emmanuel, there was no negative connotation really, for the most part. It was all positive, and it was, and it was kind of seen as a status symbol too at that particular point in time. And so, that was the mentality at that point. And it was just like, because we were also a startup, and in that, hyper growth, it was also like more and more and more, and keep doing this.
Yeah.
And yeah, so like, it changed the way that people behaved in meetings, but also in life, right? So it wouldn't be uncommon to see people over time at their children's sporting events or other events, and responding to emails and doing those things, and stories of women being in the giving birth to a baby, and also like with their BlackBerry, right? So I think it was Kara Swisher, one of the
Yeah.
famous journalists, that was doing that, and so things that we'd never imagined or intended as part of it, but it really kept people connected all the time, for better or worse, depending on the perspective.
So kind of starting at BlackBerry, you're at the beginning. What is one thing that is happening today related to social media, digital connectivity, that you could have never imagined even at that time? Like that is so surprising. It doesn't necessarily have to be negative. It's just like an advancement or a trend that you think is like, you just could never have saw or seen.
Well, so the interesting thing is when we started BlackBerry, we were using a network, that data network, basically, that had never been used for anything, like email and some of these things. And so what we couldn't see and understand at that point is that someday people would be doing something like TikToks, where they're sharing videos, like recording videos on their phone and being able to share those and be able to quickly view them. There was The laws of physics around the wireless networks at that point were such where like that couldn't be done, right? And it didn't seem like a reality. And so as I look back now, it's amazing. I think it shows the spirit of innovation in terms of finding a way to make physics work over those wireless networks, and then as well the creativity and innovation of people to create an app like that. But you needed those wireless networks and the laws of physics, and so at that point, that was something that we could never have contemplated, and is amazing when I think about it in this day and age.
Perfect. So let's kind of segue into Sonos. Like this is a space that I'm personally very like excited about. So it's really exciting that you're on the show, because my main vision, and I was telling you about this, is I want to be able to like first own a home, right? But I want to be able to walk down to my kitchen and like say X, Siri, Alexa, Sonos, whoever it is, right? Like order this for me, right?
Yeah.
Or can you send an email to my dentist? I can't make it to this appointment, right?
Yeah.
And have that confidence that it can be done, like as if I was doing it myself. And that's
Yeah.
kind of like what you're going to be delivering to people who are listening. So kind of tell us about like your goal, like what is Sonos going to be 5 years from now?
Yeah, well, we want to be the world's leading sound experience customer. So that means a company. That means actually being in any place that you want to use sound, or sound is part of the experience. And so we've started in the home, obviously, in terms of there, and music has been the most emotional connection that people have had. But we've moved into being the sound for television as well. And so for movies and home theaters now, Sonos is the leading solution. And then we've recently moved into more of what's referred to today as the smart speakers, and really being the Switzerland of the smart speakers. So we offer both Google Assistant and Amazon Alexa. And then we also have our own voice initiatives that we've been working on. So we acquired a company that has been working on something that's very focused on privacy, which is an area that we're very different in terms of the way that we think about these things. And then very focused on music and sound, as opposed to trying to focus on everything, which Amazon and Google do very well, and Apple with Siri. And so, already you can run those voice assistants on Sonos products, and you can be in your kitchen and ask for a timer, ask for songs, move the volume up and down. You can set appointments and reminders, some of those things that are there. And I think you'll see over time, like more and more of that. Now, the issue is today is that companies are building microphones into refrigerators and speakers and like all sorts of different products. And we don't need that. We don't need microphones in everything. And so, our view is to enable microphones in our products that then others can use, or you can choose which services you want to use. So and not be trapped in one, right? That's the other thing that happens in our industry is you'll see different companies wanting to just have their voice assistant on a product or their services. And that's where we're very different than the other players in the market. We offer all the music services, all the podcasting services, all the voice services. And so what I think is important is that you build a platform which sets you up so that customers 5 years from now, if there's two or three new voice services that are interesting, or if like different brands have different voice services, those can all run on the product. And so that's the way we think about it. We think about it as like a future looking platform for audio in terms of like going back and forth like two ways in terms of what's there. And look, I think one of the interesting spaces is like with Clubhouse and Twitter Spaces and some of these other areas is to be able to do social audio as well over these products, because it kind of sucks to be on your phone doing some of those sessions, right? And that kind of thing. And instead, if you could be in your living room or in your kitchen or office or whatever, and be involved in one of those rooms on Clubhouse or Twitter Spaces, I just think it's going to be a much better experience. And that's an interesting way of like interacting and thinking about that too. There's intercom functionality. So even today, we'll call the kids from the kitchen using a speaker and it'll play in their rooms. But I actually think there's the interaction and ordering things, which you can do with Amazon Alexa today. But I think then there's also, the AI and machine learning, which takes it to another level around anticipating what you want to do, learning your routines and some of those things. So within 5 years, for sure, you'll as well see anticipation of behaviors based on learning what it is that you do. If you're asking it for the same station or music every day, it will know that, and it'll just start anticipating what time you get up, what music to play when, and eventually who's in the room, and then as well determining what to play based on who's in the room.
Perfect. That's exciting. That's
It is.
that's really exciting. Like the idea that like I don't know, like I've always kind of had this vision as well, as like you're kind of having a nice get together with your friends, and based on who's in the room, you're going to be able to play music that everybody's going to like.
Yes.
There's certain music I play, I don't know if you do this as well, but I have my own playlist, and then you have like the playlist. All right, I know these people, like I want to play cater to the room a little bit. But
Totally.
so here's one thing, and this is natural within like your industry, and this is one thing that you're gonna have to overcome, and I'm curious how you're gonna try to do it. Is the speaker is gonna quote unquote always be listening, and this is something that people will naturally be concerned about. They'll some people will draw like very drastic
Yeah.
conclusions to what this means. Some people are more okay with this. How are you going to overcome this? And because this needs to be a product in which like most people use, right, and that they feel
Yeah.
comfortable in it.
Yeah.
So how are you going to overcome that?
It's been fascinating to watch, because I think there was immediate, like most, tech innovations go through basically a cycle, right? And so Gartner has this hype cycle, and there was an amazing lift of like interest and excitement at first, and then there was like a bit of a reckoning around, oh, wait a minute, this thing's always listening, and what's happening around that. And I'll tell you, I think people are still you're kind of trying to figure that out and how comfortable that they are with some of that. There's some people that are absolutely fine, with Amazon or Google or Apple listening, all the time. And those companies, by the way, have done work to try and put people at ease and allow you to like clear your history and some of those things. One of the things that we did was we actually created it so that when you hit the mute button, it's hardwired to actually turn off the microphone, whereas in most products, what happens is that you turn it off in the app and it's not hardwired. So if somebody hacked the app, they'd be able to actually turn the microphone back on. So you can't do that on Sonos. And so we thought that was important. We're in some of the most important homes in the world, just given the nature of our product. And so we thought that was important from a security perspective. We're doing more things from a security and privacy perspective. And then, as I mentioned, the company that we acquired in this space was known as the leader in privacy and on-device work. And so our philosophy is, as we think about offering our own solution in this space, is really making sure it's the most private voice service that's out there. And you do that by as well keeping the data in the home, right? So you only go outside for those things that you need to actually go outside for, and otherwise trying to keep it in the home. But this will be an area that continues to evolve. We actually, even with our high security measures on our products with microphones, we still saw enough customer demand that we created products that don't have a microphone. So we have one product, our entry level product, that really has a microphone, or doesn't. You can choose either one. And we sell a ton of those without the microphone
Yeah.
still. And so there's a bunch of customers that aren't comfortable yet with the notion of people listening and some of those things. But I do think over time we'll figure out how to do that. There'll be new standards that develop, but some people will always, decide that maybe they don't want that. And that's okay. At the end of the day, we want to be there for those customers too.
So here's another thing, because you're kind of in an interesting position, and like there is obviously the climate around America right now, the United States, is there kind of is a lot of negative press towards big tech, big data. Essentially, people are recognizing that people like you, right, and like the rest of the people and like inside this industry have a lot of power over our lives, right? But at the end of the day, you're still a human being, and you're also a parent as well. So what's something that you can tell to other parents listening, that you're, from your perspective working in tech, like what are considerations that you are making because you're a parent? What are considerations that you're looking forward to the future, recognizing certain problems right now? Like how does being a parent affect you as like a leader in tech?
Yeah, a great question. And we have two daughters. So one that's soon going to be a senior, or in Canadian speak, 12th grade, and then one that's about to be a sophomore or 10th grade. And so, as you can imagine, we're right in the heart of them dealing with social media and mobile phones and all of those things. And I think one of the most important things that my wife and I have determined is the role modeling and how important that is. And I was a terrible role model when I was at BlackBerry because I was using my product all the time, like 24/7, and like at the dinner table, and when I was there at children's events and some of those things, even when I was out for an anniversary lunch with my wife, for instance. And I recognize in hindsight those were terrible decisions in going through. So now we're much more conscious of how we use our products, our smartphones and tablets, and we have a rule where that everybody checks them in the kitchen when they come into the house, and that's where they stay. In terms of doing that, we're very careful about no phones at the dinner table and some of those things as we go through it. But I think the role modeling is absolutely critical. We did do up with each girl, so we actually had set a rule too, they wouldn't get a phone until ninth grade. And so we held that for both, and they were the last in their class and complained endlessly about not being able to get a phone until they were in ninth grade. But we did it, and I think it's paid off because they're more ready, if you will. But you still see them getting sucked in right away. And then we had contracts for each of them, so they had to sign a contract with some language we got easily available on the internet, and things around, for instance, like don't write anything in messages that you wouldn't want to see on a billboard in Times Square, and or your grandparents to see, and things like that. But I think making them aware of the responsibility and some of those things is critically important. And so it's always on our mind, as we think about these things. We didn't let them get on social media until the end of ninth grade. So in both cases, they couldn't start using Instagram, Snapchat until they, were at the end of ninth grade. And so they had to first learn how to use their phone, and be able to just use the basics, and then social media later. And we have access to their accounts, and we follow them and those kind of things. And, we help them understand that we're trying to guide them through this and, show them the future. Because as we all know, like a lot of that stuff is permanent record on the internet. And so when they become, job seeking age and some of those things, or they're applying to universities and people are looking at those things, it's absolutely critical that they know what they're doing. So, but I do think, Emmanuel, the number one thing at the end of the day is being conscious of how you're using it yourself, but when you're in front of them as well. And so how they see you interacting with it is what they're going to see. And you're setting those permission guidelines.
So we have a couple more minutes. We're going to do a quick rapid fire, if that's okay with you. I'm going to
Yeah.
give you a few topics and just short words, what you think about them. So most exciting piece of tech coming out that you're looking forward to. Could be personal, could be professional.
Oh, yeah, I just invested in a company called Brink Drones, and they're doing drones to help law enforcement in terms of safety, in trying to create safer environments. And so very excited about that company and that technology.
So biggest concern about social media looking forward?
Um, I think that would be just how divisive it tends to be. And I think, I'm not sure how we close that gap at the end of the day. I see it here in the United States, just dividing the country. And I'm worried about it.
Yeah. So what are your like are you optimistic for VR in terms of connectivity, or are you kind of a downer on it?
Oh, I'm optimistic, probably more augmented reality than virtual reality. And I think so creating, helping augment our experiences and some of those, but and then I do think the metaverse will be a thing. I do think there'll come a time for virtual reality, but I think the first step is probably augmented reality.
Last one, any last words to any parents coming from, a tech expert? If what's the number one piece of advice you would give them to kind of cope and like how do I manage the social media age when it comes to parenting?
Yeah, I think be a good role model yourself in terms of how you're using technology, and be there to answer your kids' questions, and try and get help. There's lots of resources out there. Blue Guardian's a great one. So in terms of trying to be able to really navigate this space, and it's got to be something that you think about and spend time on.
Anyways, perfect. Thank you so much, Patrick. I really appreciate your time. This is a really cool segment, and I hope everybody at home got some value. I definitely did. So, anyways, thank you so much.
Thanks, Manuel.